Awesome. Well, welcome to tonight's Thursday Thoughts. It is October the 26th, 2023, and we have really cool content to bring you tonight, and I'm super excited. So we're going to be talking student engagement. But before we get started with that, just a couple of housekeeping things that are super important I want to be sure that I bring to your attention. So as you all know, as I'm sure you know, SCAMLE is kind enough to bring us to bring this to you, and so we thank them officially for their support. In addition, remember that there's lots of ways to get involved with your SCAMLE. I encourage you to go visit www.scamle.org for all of the latest and greatest information on everything. So there's 5 days left to apply to present at conference in March 2024. So if you have a really cool idea and you would like to present at Conference 2024, we want you. So you have 5 days left to apply to present. Also, early bird registration is currently open. So gather up your friends and try to make plans and get that rolling so that you don't miss out on the biggest middle level conference in the state of South Carolina. You don't want to miss it. And plus you get to go to Myrtle Beach. Like, how fun is that? Also, just let's see, there are grant monies that are currently available for both pre-service educators as well as for teachers. Excuse me. So just remember that there is grant money available. All of that information can be found on the website regarding applications and deadlines and all the like, but certainly take advantage of those grant monies that are available so that you can attend SCAMLE 2024. We don't meet for Thursday Thoughts next week because I will be at AMLE National. Sorry. Okay, goodness. So I will be presenting actually at AMLE National, which I'm super excited about. And so I can't wait until we come back to a Thursday Thoughts the following week, where we tell you everything we did at AMLE National and bring you all the latest, greatest, everything that's going on in middle level education. So we will be in Maryland. The whole team will be. Dr. McDonald, Mr. Jenkins, and myself are going to be traveling to Maryland. And all I can say is that I've traveled with those gentlemen before. So say a prayer. All right. For me, not for them. Say a prayer for me. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our content for tonight. So as I said, we're talking student engagement, which is super fun. And obviously, because you're here, you recognize that that it's a very important topic to discuss. So for those of you who don't know, I'm Sarah Evanson Atkinson. I'm the Professional Learning Director for SCAMLE. I'm an instructional coach in Greenville County Schools at Ralph Chandler Middle School. I have been an ELA teacher for more than 20 years. And just like you, I wear tons of hats. I'm a wife, a mom, a friend. And so we really hope to value your time in these webinars. So just as a word of caution, make sure that you have your pencil ready or your pen ready or your notebook or your phone, and be sure that you're jotting down information that you want to follow up on. We move at a really quick pace, right? Because we want to make sure that we get to a lot of content. And so today is really about, and all of our Thursday Thoughts are really about planting seeds of things that for you to think about and to research later. So we hope that happens for you. Dr. McDonald he got stuck at work, go figure. Super busy guy. He serves as the executive director for SCAMLE, and he said he's going to jump on the call in a little bit. So a little bit later tonight. Our board president is, of course, Jeff Jenkins, and he is actually not available to be on the call tonight, but we hope that some of his board members will join us at some point during the call. All right, so before we start with content tonight, I want to introduce to you our esteemed panel of experts here that are going to be joining us in this panel discussion, in this conversation. So the first person I want to introduce is Erica Nelson. So Erica, where are you from? What do you do? What keeps you busy? What are you into right now? What's cooking?
Well, I tried to give a hint by the background. I am the AVID coordinator here at Dent Middle School. I serve too many hats, to be honest with you here. I also do student council, do after school, and as well as working on making certain our students are engaged in our AVID program. One of the things that I love to tell people about me is I am one of those who roots for the underdog student. So I came into the profession being a special education teacher. And it's really, really, really just like a personal thing for me to make certain that the information, the programs, and everything we have creates equity. Our school really struggles with that, only because we have two magnets here and a traditional learning program. So we are constantly making certain we are serving all of those students and all of those programs at the best equality level that we can. I'm so grateful to be here and so thankful and hope I can learn something precious from you guys. Thank you.
Hey, awesome, awesome. And definitely it's gonna be a time tonight, Erica. I can feel it. Like the energy is super positive tonight, which I'm super excited about. I also want to introduce our next panelist who's going to be talking tonight. It sounds really, it's Sarah, it sounds really like official, but it's really just like three gals hanging out, like just talking shop. So I want to introduce to everyone Sarah Weaver. So Sarah, where are you from? What do you do? And what do you stay busy with? Because I'm sure you get bored if if you're like us.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I am a sixth grade social studies teacher at Busby Creative Arts Academy, which is in Lexington too.
Yep.
I'm the team leader and have been there for 23 years and was also a student at the same school. So I think just listening to Erica, I was thinking my passion is just serving the community that I'm from. Yeah. And just really getting to know the kids, love the kids, having gone to school with a lot of the parents and now teaching the kids of kids that I've taught. It's just such a fun community. It's a Title I school. It's a tough area, but it is so rewarding.
That is amazing. That is amazing. I can't wait to hear your perspective, because I think a lot of times in our conversations, we don't get enough teacher perspective of like people who are actually doing the work, right? And so I mean, while I may be in classrooms every day, and I certainly, my heart is there, that the perspective of a teacher in the trenches, in the classrooms every day doing the work is invaluable to our conversation. So thank you, because I know you're tired, because I know you're tired. And so I appreciate you giving us a little bit of time tonight of your expertise. All right, so we're going to start off with a quick video, and notice here what I put there in the side. Simplicity is beautiful and efficient. A lot of times when we think of student engagement, we go to a place that is very complicated. We think that we have to do this shock and awe presentation in order to engage all of our students with any kind of regularity. And the reality is that we don't really have to do a shock and awe all the time. And really, we just need to look at sometimes the simplest way through is the most efficient and the best way through. So as you watch this, I just want you to consider that notion that sometimes simplicity is really where the beauty is.
Take a look at your graph.
In most classes, variability is the norm, not the exception.
We're going to be doing an I notice, I wonder.
This teacher is aware that these children learn at different paces. And so she is creating a mechanism to see the developmental starting points of a diverse group of kids so that children can move at different rates to master the content.
This classroom is heterogeneously grouped. This is a non-tracked class. Some kids will be bypassing Algebra 1 next year and going into an advanced class, and some kids will be taking a pre-algebra class. So there's a wide range. Today's graph had a lot of information in it, and so it was perfect for an I notice, I wonder. What is this graph telling us? What do you notice in the graph? Don't do the wonders yet, just your notices. Take about 2 minutes. The I notice, I wonder helps kids slow down and really focus on what's in front of them. They wrote about what they noticed and then turned and talked to a neighbor to enhance and to draw attention to things that they maybe had missed.
Renewable energy aren't being used as much.
Yeah. Seems to be going down, actually.
The use of coal is going down too.
The information she is getting is about the individual variability in that classroom. What the kids are getting is the benefit of learning from each other.
All right, let's get a list of I notice and I wonder.
I noticed that petroleum had big jump in the 1900s.
It's another notice.
I noticed this is the monthly energy review.
Oh, so you're looking below the graph as well as above the graph. Awesome. All right, let's switch over to the back side, and I want your wonders. What do I wonder about this graph?
The I wonder is a great way for me to see what they need to know.
So what do you wonder? Oh my gosh, so much to wonder about.
I wonder what the other renewables are.
It's also a time when you can build confidence in kids.
Great question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. Aiden,
What is BTU?
what is a BTU? Great question.
I notice I wonder just brings the conversation to a place where all people can contribute. It gives everyone a voice. It allows kids to listen to other people's ideas before they do the analysis. So it's like a way to collect information collaboratively, but allowing time to think first.
Take a look at your graph.
All right, so what I want to do, I'm going to go ahead and open up the chat. This shifted my thinking. This made me think of, I noticed, I wonder, just, you know, because I couldn't resist, right? Because we just watched a video about noticing and wondering. So drop your ideas in the chat. After watching that, how did that shift your thinking? What did that make you think of? What did you notice? And what did you wonder? And we're going to start, Erica, with, you know, one of the things that I love about that video is that she says that if we could just get the kids to slow down and focus, and clearly there's a process, you know, there's a process. When we talk about student engagement, so a lot of times we talk about, well, they have to be having fun. They have to be, and it's really not about the fun. It's about the doing. It's about the doing. So I wonder, you know, how does that translate for you? Like when you were watching that, how important is it for kids to slow down and focus, write, then turn and talk? How important is that process right there for, in your opinion, for students to learn, you know, new concepts, really difficult things in the classroom?
Oh man, that's my heartbeat. So literally that's the premise in what AVID is about. It is not about making certain you have the smartest kids. It's not about having the most eloquent students who can speak perfectly. It's having respect in where they are, what they can do, and how they can contribute. And one of the things that I love that she said was that it gives the opportunity for those different students to be able to be a part of the conversation. All of us have seen those learning gaps with our students. If you didn't see it, you saw it after COVID.
Sure.
We definitely have the differentiation coat has taken on, it's now a closet. It's no longer a coat. And so it's so important that we have those resources and those staples and mechanisms and how we order our classes, instruct our lessons. And it has to be where it works across all curriculums. So for me, the I wonder and the I ask, that's a part of what we do here when it comes to AVID. And I have the opportunity to do that 6 times a day with the 6 classes that I teach. But yeah, but the thing I love though is that's the one thing, it never fails. So I don't care if it's a video, I don't care if it's a lesson, I don't care if it's a worksheet, a lab, those students get so excited when they are able to give that plug in. And the initial thing that was written on the video that said the simplicity and the beauty, we've had observations, and so teachers are always welcome to come in and see our classes. And so lately when they've come in, they're like, Ms. Nelson, I noticed you, like, are you paying them? Are they doing candy? Why are they so engaged in a level that I didn't see with the students last time? And I told them, I said, well, I do give them candy. And I laughed and I said, no, I haven't given anything. I said, actually, I pulled back the technology because it forced them to have to think. The technology was too much of a scapegoat because then my brainiacs Google stuff really quickly, or then my students would kind of look back at information I would give them to then maybe regurgitate information that was there. But to make them wonder and to make them ask is the most beautiful concept that you can give and should be the heartbeat for all teachers, and to make certain that students are plugging into the lessons.
Absolutely. And I think this idea of like plugging into the lessons is really what we're looking at when we're talking about engagement, is that students are plugged in, connected, that there is an exchange going on between teacher, between student and student, between teacher and student, between student and the environment in which they're sitting in. All of this is integral to being able to engage. Now, I have to ask Sarah, like from a teacher perspective, one of the things this teacher said in the video was, all people can contribute and it helps to build confidence. It's important. Kids got to know things, right? We have to teach them things and they have to know stuff in the classroom. But how important is confidence in all of this? Do you think, in your opinion, from what you've seen?
Well, thinking about this presentation and just thinking about it tonight, I think that's it. I mean, if the kids don't have the confidence in themselves, in the support from their teacher, and that comfort of the classroom and in the supportive environment, they're not going to take the risk. And sometimes as the teacher was going through this, there really wasn't a wrong answer per se. And I think that activity was set up correctly to give the kids that confidence of, okay, I really can participate in this.
Absolutely. For sure. I agree.
The kids are just afraid to get it wrong, and they want to participate, especially at the middle level. They really want to participate.
They do.
They love attention. So anytime that they can do it and know that their answer is right is just that confidence building they need.
Absolutely. I mean, you think about, if you have, and I love the fact that the video talked about the reality is that our students there's more differentiation. Everybody is an individual. Like everyone comes to this work from a different place, from a different spot. And so it's, we have to be really delicate about how, and I think Sarah, you hit it on the head there, is in how we build out these activities and then continue to support them with direct instruction and different modalities. And sometimes, as Erica pointed out, we got to put away the tech for sure. So Stephanie offers, this made her think of like very student-centered. The kids are doing the thinking. The teacher's not giving them the answer and is doing the work for them. So learning is an action. And so when we think about, well, I want my kids engaged. Do you want them engaged or do you want them quiet? Because sometimes engaged doesn't look like quiet. And sometimes engaged and thinking, which is an action, doesn't look like compliance. And so we have to kind of get comfortable with that. Now, not to say you should have chaos in your classroom. I'm not advocating for that, of course. But Sarah Broom offers, I wondered how to use this in counseling small groups because it allows everyone to participate. Absolutely. You could use these kind of prompts with all kinds of different media to get the kids involved. I mean, think about how, and I think Sarah was the one who brought this up, that, taking risks, like school is hard, school is scary. And so if we can create environments and opportunities for the kids to take risks, it's a win-win all around. JR said, I like that it was a way for kids to focus and share. Absolutely. Sharing is where it's at. If the kids are quiet in your room, there's not a whole lot of learning going on. Dr. Carnes says, from a university perspective, I knew that's who it was, Dr. Carnes. I'm happy you're on with us tonight. From a university perspective, this point is especially applicable to engaging our middle level teacher candidates so that they have lived experiences that may help them integrate these approaches into their future classrooms. Absolutely. And I want to accentuate that point for just a moment, if you'll just, give me, oblige me. So the reality here is that I work with a ton of new teachers because that's just the way of the world. So I work with a ton of new teachers, and we take for granted, the seasoned among us take for granted some of these teacher moves that are so subtle. I just need you to tell me what you notice and then what you wonder about a piece of text or a piece of media. that is a really subtle teacher move that is instinctual to many teachers who've been doing this for a while, because I know how to ask to get to the place that I want to get to. But remember, for our new teachers, until they try it out and take a test drive, it is not instinct. It is not something that you're born with. It is a skill that you develop over time. So if you have any role in supporting a new teacher, please, please, please make sure that you remember that those things are not instincts that you were born with. Those things were skills that you developed over time. Beverly takes off the emphasis off knowing and puts it on learning. And suddenly everybody has a voice. Love that. So it's not about the smartest kid in the class or even the loudest kid in the class. It's about learning, and we're all going in the same direction and we're learning together. I love that. And certainly extremely important to student engagement, as Ms. O'Brien offers for sure. All right, so I want to talk about, and I've got a little extra tonight. So don't, bear with me here, a little extra tonight. So remember, so we just started off kind of broad, right? So these are like subtle, things that first approach didn't take any money. It didn't cost you anything. You don't have to give the kids anything. You don't have to bribe them to do it. This is a very low risk kind of environment. Now, you don't have to use it with low risk or low rigor text. You could use it with things that are more difficult and it would be less frightening. But I want you to take a look at this. So I love this technique that she puts together. And I want you to think about engagement is about the kiddos. It definitely is about what the kids do. And then we're going to talk about how engagement is related to what the teachers do. But first, we're going to talk about the kids.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Beachboard, and I teach English for high school. A lot of the time, teenagers feel like they're not in control, but by giving someone the idea of their future goals, it reminds them that they can control the person they hope to be. And so I started the Future Goals Gala. It helps me connect with my students based off of their dreams and future passions, and it gets them thinking about all those things that matter to them. I planned the gala during the first week of school, and I explained to the students that we're going to have a 30-year class reunion in the classroom. Teenagers really enjoy this, and especially when you tell them it's a party. I send home a guiding info sheet. Some of the questions are like, think about yourself 30 years from now. What places do you really hope to go to? Or what kind of impact do you hope to have in your community, in your field of study? And so by thinking about all of those things, they create the persona of the person they're going to become. And it also has a timeline to look at all of those things they want to accomplish. How are they going to get there? How does education fit in with that? So on the actual day, I hang up a giant banner that says 30-year class reunion, and I fill champagne glasses with apple juice. Then the students come in and introduce themselves as the person they've become. It's really funny because they're like, I haven't seen you in years. How are you, John? I asked them to bring materials of proof of their future successful life. And so they will bring in photoshopped pictures of themselves on Mount Everest, their cure for cancer in a vial, a cake that they decided to make as a Michelin chef. As I get introduced to this future amazing person, I take notes on the things that they tell me. Like, oh, I'm doing work in Uganda and I'm building wells. And I'm like, wow. And then my job as the teacher is to interweave those components into the semester. So as an English teacher, I choose stories based off of their passion. So I have a student who's really interested in birds. I will do a whole lesson where we'll read something about birds and they can be the expert in the room. For a teacher who says this seems like a lot of extra work, it is, but it's worth it because this gives them motivation to be in school for what they're doing in the classroom, showing that you are invested not just in the student for their education, but you're invested in the person they're going to become.
All right, so collaboration, what is that? That is interesting. Okay, Well, I don't know. That is something that shouldn't be there. Okay, nevertheless. All right. So talk to me a little about control, and we'll open up the chat here in just a second. Don't worry what's printed on here. That, I think when I was doing this, my internet went out at school. You can't, you just can't trust the internet. So nevertheless, collaboration is critical, but I want you to talk about in the chat, here was the thought process behind that. So this is a lot about control, the kids having control of what it is they're learning. And, that's hard for us. We don't like to give up control, all right, of much of anything, frankly, especially not what they're supposed to be learning. But I want you to think about what the relationship is between control and engagement. And I want you to think about that as a human being. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the chat. Think about that. What is the relationship as you see between control, right, and engagement for people in general? So Erica, I love this activity because I'm from so many levels. Like, I think it's amazing to think about that the kids can plan out, because they're going to be doing things in 30 years that we don't even know about. And I love the idea of, of looking at my future self. Like, what are the goals you have for yourself? I mean, I feel like an activity like that is highly engaging, and I'm curious. And what role does curiosity play in the learning, do you think, Erica?
Dude, I'm like exploding with excitement.
I
because
know.
This is, I can't even, so I'm like listing all the teachers because we're doing this. So I always ask my students, your future self, what are you gonna do? And I think what I do is larger than life. There's nothing in comparison to this teacher. And so it is worth every single freaking second. The curiosity is amazing, because guess what? Some of your students have never thought about this. They have never really looked at what this means. And it helps me talking about kids with college, because I will ask them, okay, do you know anybody who goes to a job and they hate it? They identify with that. Do you know anybody who lives in a house and they hate where they live? Or do you like where you live? Right. What do you want that future life to look like? And so for our kids to get engaged, it doesn't matter the race, the color, the demographics of our school, they have to have that excitement or that fire to know, I'm doing all this in order for this to happen at the end. And so from the most engaged student to the one who literally wants to do nothing in your classes, the beauty in making them and forcing them to say, okay, I got to choose a future somebody. I'm gonna be a future nobody at the reunion. I'm really going to, how many questions do you really, really answer and examine as a student? And then it unfolds you having to have because sometimes as teachers, we don't really get to know students until they're ready for us to get to know them. So some of our students, they unfold themselves. They're these little onions, and we get to learn them first quarter. Some it takes way longer, third quarter. I've had a student I ain't getting known until the next year. Mm-hmm. So to be able to make them then have to go through and put those shades down and really expose themselves to say who they are, and more importantly, then think about it and execute it. This is so ingenious. I'm going to do social media just so all of you can see what it looks like.
Good. You do. Okay, do that, because I've already decided, by the way, that the first opportunity I have to step into a classroom, I'm totally doing this, because I mean, how cool is it? I love that curiosity guides this, because the reality is that the young person who said, I'm going to be working in Uganda building wells, they must have a passion. There is something there that drives them there. Like, you don't just wake up one morning and say, it would be really fun. I mean, that's not how that works. Like, for anyone, forget about adolescence. I mean, like, for human beings in general. Yes. And so I just love that. So Sarah, chime in. What do you think about this? I love the curiosity being the driver.
Yeah, thinking about that, first of all, I'm going to use that lesson next year. 100%.
I know, right? How fun is that?
But I guess I'm very lucky to teach history. And so we have the ability to really tap into the things that they love. And I tell the kids, first day of school, if you don't like history, I promise you by the end of the year, you will love it. It will be your favorite subject. I promise. And it's all about the way we present it to them. And as this was going on, I was thinking, when I first started teaching at the school that I teach at, there was kind of chatter of, we may have to combine with another school because we have gotten so small. And it just wasn't making a lot of sense to have an extra building open. And so the school kind of came together and thought, okay, what can we do? That's where we began to approach the idea of the arts. And that student engagement with the arts, building that curiosity. And that's what we do each week in my class. So I kind of present it to them as, okay, we're playing the sport. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we have to practice. Sometimes we have to get down to the nitty gritty, and we have to learn the facts that sometimes aren't as exciting as you might think you would like it to be. But then on Fridays, we get to play. So Friday is that opportunity for that research, the creating the ideas. I know next Friday, the kids are going to be working on Roman inventions. And one of the kids discovered in one of the activities that we were doing that Rome had exploding toilets. And so the kids have decided this is going to be their project, and letting them just kind of go with it.
Right.
And I'm like,
right.
Okay. Not what I would have decided, but okay. I mean, it's right up a sixth grader's alley,
Right. I mean, I can get behind an exploding toilet, I guess, and it's funny because like, they're so like emboldened, like they'll pursue the research that they want about these exploding toilets. I mean, they're going to find every bit of primary source and secondary source documents you can think of, and they will work, even if they can't read it, they'll figure out a way.
They'll do the pictures, they'll do whatever it takes. And their parameters are Roman inventions. And so it really allows them that free choice.
Right. Now, student choice is huge. I mean, if you're not giving them choice, then you're taking away the control that they have about what they learn. And you think about, a lot of times adolescents don't really have a ton of control over much of anything. I mean, they really don't. They don't have a driver's license, can't drive where they want. They can't determine, many of them don't even determine like what extracurricular activities they get to do, or if any. And so they don't have a ton of control. And so if we can even give them the illusion of control, that give them the choice, you're making a choice to do this, all of a sudden the world looks a whole lot different. I mean, the colors around look a whole lot brighter when the choice is made available to them. JR offers, I hope that the teacher ended the gala with where she thinks she'll be in 30 years. No, gosh, please, no, my goodness, I don't know. I'm going to be like, yeah, I'm going to be on an island somewhere. No, I'm just kidding. Great way to slip in how proud she'll be of all of them. Absolutely, JR. And I think, and I think sometimes we also take for granted how, because we get in the zone sometimes at work. I mean, let's be honest, like we're in the zone, we're super focused, and we lose sight of how impactful our words can be upon the children and the way they view themselves. We really lose sight of that. Erica, talk about that for a second. So, I mean, because we're really a powerful bunch. I mean, the teacher has a lot of influence over the students in his or her care.
We're everything. And when one of the things I'm that, for those of you familiar with your schools, I'm that teacher who stays in trouble. So I'm in the principal's office just as much as the kids. Because when I see a student, the last thing I'm looking for is the ID. I'm excited to see you. Hey, did you have a good weekend? How was your night? You feel okay? I'm glad you're here. How they feel and getting them excited is like paramount. And I know I probably should be checking for that ID, but at this point, I'm really not care, because I want you to know, number one, I appreciate you being here. The content I teach is really heavy with AVID. So other students are jumping up, throwing balls, hanging out in the courtyard, but you're in here taking notes and talking and thinking about college. So any and everything that I can do to let you know, number one, that I appreciate you, but more importantly, I appreciate what you bring to this class is everything. And I think sometimes you do lose sight of that. And especially with me speaking on those of you who have those magnets, we have honor students, we have the diversity within our groups just naturally. making certain that we give that equity to all of the students. There's that opportunity to shine, and it doesn't have to be a program for you to let a student know that they're important and valuable. How you'll know they'll feel that is when they come back to you the next day for a conversation, or when you see them at lunch and they'll run up to you and be like, "Hey," and then you're like, "Oh, so there was a spark there." And every student has to have that special somebody on their campus in order for them to have that beauty in their day, because no one wants to come and do notes and go to 6 different classes and all that. So there has to be those beauty and those moments where they get excited, and that allows them to have that connection to the school. And then that's when we see students then evolve and then mature, especially in the middle school setting, because everything's going on at that point. But you really get to see them evolve, and then they begin to think about their personal feelings, and then what are the things they're saying and doing that affect their peers and their teachers as well. So to me, that's everything. That's everything.
Yeah, I agree. You know, Sarah, what do you do in your classroom to be sure that students feel not invisible, feel seen, feel heard, feel understood? Look, she's like, oh my gosh, I'm being super self-critical right now. I'm terrible. No, you're not. You're wonderful. I'm certain of it. You know, but I do think we underestimate the importance of that, of the feelings component when we talk about student engagement. I think we underestimate the connection between the two.
And I kind of make that face because I think, kind of like Erica, my team calls me the team mom. And part of that's because I'm twice the other teacher's age on my team. But but like I'm the teacher that the kids hug. I'm the teacher that just loves to hear the story. And I think that's everything. I can get my kids to do almost anything because they know I care.
Yeah.
And I think it starts there. I mean, it has to start there. And you know, this classroom isn't what it was when we went there. You went in class, you did what you were supposed to because it was what you were supposed to do.
Right. Right.
Not like that. And it's so funny. Sometimes you hear the community talking and they're like, how do you get the kids to listen? I don't know.
Right.
You know, like
it's a secret sauce.
Right.
I told you that. Yeah. Right.
You just have to have it. And sometimes I'm like it's not because there's anything I can do. If, you know, our powers are very, very limited. It's making them realize that you care and you're invested in their learning.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think investment, I think in that feeling, the word, I'm going to steal your word. I think being invested in our kids in a meaningful way. And it doesn't mean that you're working 14 hours a day. And it doesn't mean that's not the translation of investment. Because when we are on, we can be on and invested. And we can be invested in our families, and we can be invested in our personal lives. And if we like to travel and do all the things, we can be invested there too. But when we are at school and we are on, we can be invested in the children. And I think that, you know, I think that you bring up a very good point. All right, so our last piece for tonight, because I said it's a little extra tonight. We're doing a little extra tonight. So I want you to take a look. So we're sort of widening out the scope. And this conversation about student engagement may be different than conversations you've had in the past. And frankly, that's okay, because I think, again, that we need to be clear on what it is we're looking for when we say, I want all students to be engaged. What does that look like? What is that actually like? What is the translation of that for you? Because it's different for every single teacher in every single classroom for every single kid. And so we have to be really clear about what student engagement really, really is. So while you're watching this, and I'm going to have the chat open too. But the question is, I want you thinking about, and I want you watching for, is what is the teacher doing? I want to look at the teacher moves that are directly affecting the student engagement in this piece, because the student engagement is out like off the charts, but the teacher may have a much more similar personality to some of the people watching. Then he doesn't seem like this, you know, like this over the top personality. He's a little bit more reserved. And just because you're reserved doesn't mean you can't have good student engagement.
Having to learn about something so abstract and complicated as the cell, being the smallest unit of life, I sort of wanted to make it larger than life. So we literally went big. We went really, really big in creating this giant cell model just to obviously give them an experience to remember. My name is Rob Olasagasti, 6th grade science teacher at School of the Future.
How do you think the lysosome destroys bad bacteria, basically?
A big part of this project was having them act as a teacher, and I wanted them to have a setting in which they could teach from. So, we created this giant plastic cube, which we modeled after a cell with their different cell organelle models in there. And it's something that they definitely never forget.
Anybody else?
It's awesome to have my class inside the giant cell because it's a better understanding of the cell. It's actually an experiment. We get to be there. We don't just write and read about it. We get to experience that life giant cell.
The artistic sense of the way that he approaches science is really unique, and kids really take to that. And Rob's definitely a great example of somebody who's always had creative projects, always had really hands-on science.
When you create something, you also learn.
The kids have been learning about the living cell. We started off our studies with an analogy, using something that's very common to them, something that they all obviously understand, New York City, looking at how New York City can be structured as a cell. So they represented various organelles as metaphor using different parts of the city. So for example, they have the subway system being representative of the rough endoplasmic reticulum, the nucleus being City Hall and the mayor. So they took the creative approach to learning about the cell parts. So taking the different working parts of New York City and applying them to a cell model allows them to understand the structures and the functions better. So as that project was sort of on its tail end, the kids then became experts on one specific part of the city or one specific part of the cell itself, one specific organelle. So they researched, developed lesson plans, and created models that they were to use to teach their students about the organelles that they had created. They were required to have sort of a structured lesson plan with the driving question and objective, some sort of task that the students would be doing, and then some sort of assessment at the end. And the jump start. In this project specifically, I tried taking a step back from, sort of the teacher role and really helping my students develop their own voice as teachers.
I kind of like it a lot because I like to teach people, but it also feels amazing inside, that you have experience to be a teacher.
All right, so for the driving question, how do lysosomes protect the living cell? Dana?
They understand what it takes to be a teacher, and what it is like to plan a lesson, what it's like to execute a lesson. But also, I think, more importantly, for them, it builds their confidence in the content. Having to know what you're doing before you teach it really makes a difference. So during their presentations, I was assessing their overall presentation, their confidence and their comfort with presenting the lesson, and then the content itself. How well they were hitting the facts that they needed to, how well they were expressing what we talked about in our individual conferences with those groups, how well they expressed that or presented that to their students. Also their creativity and their effort. I was sort of keeping a running record throughout their lesson of things that they said, things that they did, and suggestions on how they could improve for the next time. So at the end of this, I'll have sort of a sit down with them again to talk to them about the different elements of their lesson from my notes and from my experience with observing.
People love Rob and love his class. There's such an intellectual environment. He doesn't baby down science words. He uses sophisticated vocabulary in his class. He talks them like scientists, talks them very seriously.
So why did I go back and disagree that it would be in a plant cell? When you can change it up, make it your own, really make it personalized for the kids, it comes from the heart. It's no longer, teaching curriculum from the book. It becomes, curriculum from the heart.
All right, so let's open up the chat. And what did the teacher do? What teacher behaviors did you observe during the video? Drop those in the chat. Any that you saw that you think you could emulate? Any kind of teacher behaviors that you observed that you thought, hey, I could do that? I mean, not all of us can teach inside of a big giant plastic cube, Erica, but I love the idea. Some of those kids' lesson plans were pretty extensive. Like that kid's task list, there was a lot of stuff to do. you know, and I love the idea of the kids being the driving force, that they understand that there has to be a launch, there has to be some kind of a task to solidify learning, and there has to be some kind of an assessment to make sure that the learning took place. What kinds of things were your big takeaways from that piece? She's thinking. She's thinking. Erica's thinking. Sarah, what do you think? What teacher behaviors did you observe during the video that you thought that was interesting?
Okay, a couple of things.
Okay.
Number one, if you're not doing, you're not learning. And I think that's really, really important. Again, the kids got the choice. They were given parameters, but they got to make it their own.
Yeah.
And you could probably, I'm sure, just thinking through this, every little kid did it differently, and you got to see their personalities in each part of that. And going back, this is the way my school does things. That hands-on learning and that student engagement. Our kids were making cells the other day out of clay. And each part and piece of it, they had the different things. They made a cake also, a cell cake. One was a plant cell and one was an animal cell, and I don't really remember which was what. But they had the different layers of the cake, and then they went and baked the cake and all those things. So it's you know, the kids that are doing are the kids that are learning. Yeah. And I think also that teacher giving up the control was just important, because the teacher doesn't have to be the center of attention all the time, you know. And I think that, you know, when the kids have to own their own learning, it's pretty impactful.
Yeah, for sure. JR offers, before new standards, I like kids sign up to teach content throughout the year. JR, of course you would. He's awesome. I used a lot of their stuff years later because it was better and more kid-friendly than my stuff. I'm still getting the new standards down before I bring it back, for sure. You know, these new science standards are super complicated, but if you can see it from the perspective, I mean, I was watching that student use word like lysome, and, you know, like, these are high level vocabulary words that the kids have trouble learning. And so, but these kids were tasked. And here was the thing, I think, is that he expects such a high level of competence around, you know, I want you to be able to plan the lesson. I want you to be able to say all the words. I want you to be able to teach that to someone else. That requires like a crazy amount of competence and confidence even for that. Beverly offers that she liked that the students became the teachers. Like, it was a real serious kind of like ownership of the content. Sarah said that he was listening and gave control to kids to research and create lessons. The teacher gave individual feedback pre and post lesson, and he also created a memorable environment. You know, and it doesn't mean necessarily, Erica, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it's all about necessarily teaching the entire science lesson from inside the cell. Like, we can do things in our environment to raise engagement that don't cost any money, and we don't have to do things that are like wild and crazy. Like, we can make some minor adjustments. What are some minor adjustments that come to mind that we can do to create an environment where learning and engagement can work?
Well, I agree with you. I think sometimes we think we have to be larger in life, but we don't. And just like with the example that he gave, when you look at allowing the students to then take the objective, and I love the driving question. We always say,
too.
I don't know, we have to pivot and start using that driving question. I know. Because I always say, get your Chevy crank, your idol, so it lines in perfectly.
Yes.
But to go back to your point, when students have that ability to be able to then pick up the lesson and then put it in their lap, and then slowly unfold and put this piece here, put this piece here. At least that's what I envisioned as I saw the students learning, because I saw, okay, you learned the standard, you had to learn this part. And because you had to teach the lesson, you had to learn it here. And because you had to then be able to explain it, you were able to have presentation skills. Because you then had to have where all of the information was clear for other students, you had to think about, do I have everything there? So it's so much bigger than just, okay, here's the standard or here's the objective or what I wanted them to see. but how many different skills or concepts and exposure can you really, really create? Because their one thing was looking at the cell, but look at the exposure that was so huge off that one thing that they were able to do. And I think sometimes as teachers, we do get stuck in the, high impact agenda, or, we have so many things moving and going at one time until sometimes we get lost in the sauce. How beautiful is it to have it where the students are able to then, you give them the box, and then they take out the tools and the pieces that they need to navigate. Then they can close the box and then revisit it. And it continues that cycle. But that's the part for me that was the biggest takeaway, and that I love the most, and that I saw with the students and with the teacher.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, our content, let's be honest, it's complicated. I mean, we're asking sixth graders and seventh and eighth graders for that matter, we're asking them to think like authors. And then we're sending them away after an hour and we're saying, okay, now I want you to think like a scientist. Oh, and by the way, you're going to go to Miss Weaver's class and then I want you to think like a historian. Well, whoa, Nellie. I mean, like, hello, I'm 11. And so really, I mean, does that drive my engagement? But if I'm curious about something, and then the cherry on top is that I know Miss Nelson and Miss Weaver care about me and love me, the deal's done. The deal's written at that point, because the kids know you're invested in them and they're willing to invest in the learning. Because I don't really care if they invest in me or not. I mean, I don't need that, but I need them to invest, and I need them to invest in what they're supposed to be learning, because I want to make sure that I can lead them to a place where they can grow, for sure. All right, so I want you to be thinking about, my panelists, I want you thinking about, what's the big takeaway for tonight? What do you want people to, oh my goodness gracious, this thing like cut off stuff. Oh goodness. Okay, that's okay. All right, so I want you to think about, what's the big takeaway for tonight? What do you want people to take with them in their pocket here as we come to our final couple moments together? I want to open up the chat, and I just want to ask, and all that was on that missing, the magic missing slide, this is like the case of the missing slides, is I want you to think about what's swirling, what's in your mind, what questions do you have, what things are you thinking about? Drop those in the chat, because we want to talk about those too. If you have questions, I'm sure that Erica would be happy to answer about Avid. I'm sure that Ms. Weaver would be happy to answer about whatever you've got to with regards to classroom application. So drop those questions in the chat, drop those ideas in the chat. What are you thinking about right now? And then I'm going to turn it over to the ladies just to give a quick, like, okay, so here's the big takeaway for me. When, if I can't answer your question, so what is it that, how do I get the kids to be compliant and engaged? How do I get the kids learning in my classroom? And if I can't give you like a tangible thing. Well, I love on them. Well, that's insufficient. Like, that alone is not enough. Well, I have structures and routines in place to help support them, perhaps, but that alone is not enough. And so it has to be this magic mix, right? Where it has to be working and operating to really have just this amazing student engagement that we want. If the kids aren't doing the learning, then the learning is not taking place. And I think for me, that's where it's at. I think that's the bottom line. But I want to hear what your all's bottom line is. What's your bottom line about student engagement? Drop in the chat too. Remember, what are you thinking about? What's your bottom line about student engagement? What questions do you have? We'll go ahead and open up the chat. All right, so ladies, what do you think? What do you think? What's the big takeaway for tonight? What do you want to make sure that people remember about our time together?
My biggest and first statement would be, the excitement starts with you. You have to have that absolute excitement and love for what you are delivering. When you aren't that, they feed off of it, and then none of these other actions that you come behind it will mean anything. Whether you are this top of the world amazing 10 personality, or whether you're muted and an introvert, it doesn't matter. The excitement and the love starts intrinsically with us, and the building of that community and that us as a class definitely builds with us. I think if I were to give advice or takeaway, I do love the simplicity I think that's really, really important. I think that taking the time to create that classroom environment is everything. You will be able to catch up time on content later on, but you got to have that classroom environment where they love each other and have respect for each other and understand the boundaries and how to communicate, work, and function for the mission to be able to do all of the exciting things we saw. Because there's no way you're going to do that cell, there's no way you're going to do that gala, there's no way you're going to do those other things if the students do not have a sense of community with each other as well as in their classrooms. So for me, building that relationship with them, having that simplicity and looking at your lessons and making certain are they understanding what it is the target is and what I want them to get happens more importantly than I call them the circus shows with my other teachers, making certain that they feel confident in what they're executing and definitely creating those classroom environments would be my biggest takeaways.
Yeah, for sure. Agreed. On all fronts, Erica. Agreed on all fronts. All right. So, Sarah, what do you think? What's the big takeaway for tonight? What do you want people to take away from their experience with us for this hour?
Well, I think for me, it comes down to the caring. You got to care. Just like Erica said, care about the content, care about the kids. And they always say that, you know, elementary school teachers love the children, high school teachers love the content, and middle school love both.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that that's a lot of it. And when the kids come in and you are just like, we are going to learn the coolest things today. And then from there, let them take ownership of where they find their special interest. And then from there, okay, so here's where my interest lies. How can I prove I understand this? How can I prove that I get it? And allowing that freedom of choice, I think, is so important. And most of the time, whatever it is they come up with is 10 times more complicated than we ever would have asked them to do. And the learning is so much deeper.
Yeah.
And just like Erica had said earlier, the skills that they learn in that is so much broader than even just the content that we're teaching.
Yeah, 100%. You know, isn't it funny how they can come up with some, I mean, like that kiddo's task list was like crazy town, and you know, they're going to rise to the occasion. They're going to meet the expectations. Absolutely, 100%. Sarah says, empower student voice and encourage learning beyond the classroom, reflect and adapt lessons. You know, sometimes we get tired and we don't want to make changes to our lessons. We don't want to adapt lessons because we're tired, frankly. And so we definitely have to work to make sure that our lessons are appropriate and that meet the needs of our kids for sure. Shanice says, student engagement or relationships, which comes first? Almost chicken and egg conversation. Ain't that the truth, right? So, I mean, 100%, guys, absolutely. So student engagement and relationships are so deeply intertwined. You know, we have teachers around who, and you look at them and you go and you observe their classrooms, and the teachers say, and you say, why are the kids so engaged? And all the teacher can say is, well, I don't know. I guess they kind of like me, and I kind of like them. You know, and sometimes that's enough to have in common. You know, we both have to come here, so why not make it, you know, nice while we're here? Dr. Carden says, not a question, but teacher content knowledge is so important in engaging middle level students. True, 100%. They can ask some really wicked questions or say things that turn you on your ear, and all is not lost though when the teacher presents him or herself as a learner also. So he says, with a PhD, I still learn from students at Miss Fletcher's school. You know, when we think about like positioning ourselves as learners, that's critical. You know, that is something really important to student engagement. If you think you're going to go in there and impress a group of middle school students with your, you know, vast knowledge of, look, and these ladies are shaking their head like, no. I mean, it's really hard to impress a middle schooler. I mean, let's be honest. So they're not going to be impressed by those books you read this summer. They're not going to be impressed by that. And so it's hard because we have to be sure that we have to put ourselves in a place of this sort of this humility almost that still puts us and positions us as a learner. All right, so I am dropping in the chat right now our Google form for this evening. Remember that in order to receive your certificate for tonight's session, you're encouraged to go ahead and complete that Google form. So I have 6:59 and 30 seconds, so I only got 30 seconds ready, 30 seconds for our closing thoughts for tonight. So we've been saying this a lot over the last handful of Thursdays, but here's the deal. Our kids can do, and they want to do. And student engagement is all really hinges, it's hinged to the idea of positive classroom environment and relationships. I'm going to put that all in one basket. And then it's also dependent upon what kinds of tasks we're asking them to do. And those tasks that we're asking them to do, are they authentic? Are they meaningful? Are they purposeful? Or are they just because here's the deal. Because if they're not any of those things, then they're probably exist because you want compliance. You want some quiet, you want them seated, you want it, whatever. And so but here's the end of the story. The kids know the difference. So the kiddos are very clear. If you're giving them a worksheet and the only intent is because you need them quiet for 30 minutes, they know that. They know that. And your engagement will be low. If instead they're engaged with a task that has the potential to change the world, they will rise to your expectation and they will change the world every single day, every single hour, every single time. And does that make us tired? Yeah, sometimes I'm right there with you for sure. That's a very exhausting job. But our kids deserve it. Our kids deserve it. All right, be safe out there. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Remember that we won't meet next week, but the week after, I can't wait to show you all the cool stuff I learned at AMLE National in Maryland. Thank you guys. Have a great evening and be safe out there.